About a couple of things, so
Wow.
take your time.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for having us. We're from the Estuary Trust, and I'd like to introduce Leslie Bolton-Ritchie, who is, you may know, is a coastal horticulture and ecology scientist. And Leslie's our new treasurer, so she's part of the executive of the Estuary Trust. And Leslie's going to talk about Water Done Well, our submission about that this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having us. I'm going to read my notes rather than ad-lib because I can get repetitive and a bit passionate, and so I'll just read my notes. So I am representing the estuary as a trust member, and it's all about the estuary, nothing else. Our position on the delivery model is that we strongly support the option of an in-house water services delivery model. And our interest is in the stormwater and wastewater aspects of this model because that relates to the estuary. Untreated and treated wastewater and stormwater flow directly or indirectly into this estuary. The ecological stresses that are added included nutrients, which is mainly from the wastewater. Then we have sediments and contaminants. Then this estuary, we have a lot of other stresses. We have disturbance, we have altered estuary edges, we have continual small reclamations. All of these combined, we have got cumulative effects in this estuary. And then you add impacts of climate change and the stresses that will bring with rising sea level, increased water temperature and air temperature, and man, you've got a major mix of things that can totally go wrong for the ecological health of this estuary. The Trust acknowledges the significant progress the Council has made in the treatment of stormwater in new subdivisions through the construction of stormwater retention basins and swales, and the plans for stormwater retention basins along the Green Spine. Well done. We also acknowledge the removal of the discharge of the treated Christchurch wastewater from this estuary as of about March 2010. But we also acknowledge the hard work and advocacy of dedicated past members of the Trust, Estuary Association and the community, which resulted in the Christchurch City Council no longer being able to discharge treated wastewater into the estuary, and hence the construction of the wastewater pipe. That is the current delivery model that has provisions for communities, including groups such as this Trust, to influence decisions is ideal as it integrates outcomes for the natural environment in conjunction with outcomes from the water delivery service and the community. We do note, in terms of wastewater, that the tow drains around the treatment ponds are still an issue for the estuary, as they're the most likely source of the elevated ammoniacal nitrogen concentrations at Sandy Point in the estuary, and concentrations of ammoniacal nitrogen at the site are often above concentrations that are toxic to aquatic life. So there's still some influence of the wastewater, in this case it's the wastewater treatment system, on the estuary. Stormwater. There are numerous discharges of stormwater into the estuary through pipes and through Linwood Canal and drains such as Charlesworth Drain. The stormwater discharge is typically not treated, so there's no swales, retention basins or catch pits, and hence the stormwater is a source of litter and contaminants such as zinc, hydrocarbons and sediment from road runoff, sediment from erosion and poor sediment controls during land development. You know, we have the Port Hills right beside the estuary. The Trust sees there is a need to improve the quality of the stormwater flowing directly into the estuary to improve ecological health. We consider the trust is more likely to have some influence over the decision makers re any improvement in the quality of stormwater flowing into the estuary through the current working arrangement with council staff than through a council-controlled organisation that is primarily focused on service delivery, and from my experience is likely run by engineers who think differently to ecologists. And I'm speaking from experience here. And this is a bit of a negative. Needless to say, we consider the existing Ihutai estuary and coastal stormwater management plan to be inadequate in terms of future improvement of the quality of the stormwater flowing into the estuary. So, in summary, the estuary needs technical water infrastructure experts, ecologists, mana whenua and community groups to work together as per an in-house water services delivery model to provide the best ecological outcomes within the bounds of monetary constraints and community needs. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good. Celeste, please. And then Yanni.
So it might be more of a question. Are we able to ask for an update on the Bexley drain through this process? Can we get an update on the Bexley drain, which was highlighted in this? Because I think that's coming back.
We can take a note of it.
Kit's going to talk to the drain.
Okay. I'll come back to that then.
Yanni, please.
Thank you for the submission. There's a lot of information there that I don't see in front of us. Is there a separate written copy of what you've just talked to us that's been submitted, or are you able to submit what you've just said? So
I can
there's a lot
submit.
of technical detail.
Yes.
Yeah, stuff in there.
We made our submission, and then I was not involved in that, and I've sort of come on a bit later to kind of flesh out how it really relates to the estuary, because that's what we're about, how it relates to the estuary.
Cool. And so basically Kit's going to talk to the annual plan submission next.
Yep.
But I was really keen not to lose track of the wastewater treatment plant stuff. So probably I guess we wait to get the further information and then we can put through our...
Well, that's right. I would just like to add a few comments after Leslie's, based on me writing our submission, which is the thrust of which is we prefer the in-house option because of the great relationship that we've had with council over the decades, both in support for our community trust from City Council, but also the way we can talk to staff. We have a memorandum of understanding, so we have a dedicated staff member at our monthly board meetings. We have a memorandum of understanding document which allows us to budget on a 10-year basis in a tripartite manner with Environment Canterbury. And all of these things allow us to really use the often integrated policies and directions and plans of council and for water and wastewater, in particular stormwater, with other planning that's going on around the estuary. So I think it's been a great success, and that's why we prefer to stick with the status quo at the moment for the in-house option for water delivery.
Good.
And we will submit Leslie's document to Jessica after this meeting.
Cal.
Thank you, Leslie. That's really interesting. In terms of the drains that are draining into the estuary, has there been any progress over the last few years on improving the water quality that's coming in to the estuary on those drains? Because it's been identified as a problem for some time. What level of engagement have you had with council over that?
I can't really answer that question. I believe there's been a little bit of work. I know the Bexley drain that Kit's going to talk about has done some work. I'm not sure about the other ones, like in terms of the water quality in Limwood Canal and Charlesworth.
Yeah, because it would
think
seem
there might have been snippets of work that's done. I don't think Environment Canterbury have done any work, so any work would have been done by the council.
so. Yeah, it seems to me to be a fairly simple thing to fix, ameliorate. Kit, is there anything that you?
Well, I think we should probably switch over to the annual plan bit now, and I'll continue answering your question around that. So the with the I'm sort of switching times here, but
yeah, right.
bridging the two areas. So we've got an investigation with the Bexley Drain. Now, you probably, you may or may not be aware of the identification of the leachate that comes out of the Bexley former landfill. And that is highly toxic, and it's completely untreated and flows straight into the estuary at nearly the mouth of the Otakaro Avon River. So we've been working with council about a plan to tackle that pollution, and I think that kind of plan needs to be transferred to all of the drains that come in. We think that the Bexley Drain, with its highly toxic lead levels and other really toxic material leaching out of that landfill, is probably the best to tackle first. But Kelly, coming back to your question, I think it would be great if we could maybe have an option of, once we've tackled that worst case scenario, to actually look at the other drains, because I think there'll be an easier fix, and it'll be about just stopping the direct. We'll have a sort of a catch pit, and the engineers will be able to sort out some sort of way of tackling the contaminants that could flow through a dedicated end of the drain before it hits the estuary or the rivers. So that would be my suggestion there. And coming back to the estuary drain itself, we really applaud the council's work on this so far. I don't know whether you've had a chance to read our submission, but the Patterson Dallimore partners have come up with estuary drain identification evaluation of possible remedial options. And we've seen that report, and we've had some feedback from both our most experienced board members, Leslie to my right, and also Vicky Southworth. And they have fed back to the board about looking at the report from PDP, the engineers looking into the options, and the annual plan submission from the trust sort of says we'd really like to work closely with those options, because we don't think it's quite right at the moment. We think that the contamination, at the moment, we really need to focus on the water quality coming out of that option. And we think that there's sort of, how some of these engineering schemes have gradients and ratios, and there's numbers put on things, and we think the numbers are not quite right at the moment. So we'd love and in the submission I've said we'd love to be part of working with the firm to help choose some of the options around the design of the Bexley drain, which I think would be the worst and the most important to hit.
I'd just like to say something. The focus of that report seems to be on the aesthetics and improving the aesthetics, not improving the outcomes for what could happen in the estuary. So we see the focus as not meeting the estuary needs.
Yep, good point.
Celeste? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Daniel's Cal. Sorry, Celeste. Yep.
I think, sorry, going back to the question before, do you know what the time frame is to get options? Because it says you're looking to accelerate the work, but I'm not actually don't know where that's at. So I wonder if that's something I need to put through the annual plan tool. Is that a question for that? Yeah, okay. So we'll try to get some information on that. You probably know more than me, you do know more than me, but I'm not quite clear on where it's at. So
No, we usually rely on the great knowledge of Eric Banks for that kind of information, because he knows where the planning is at. So we'd be asking Eric. So
okay.
Please ask him about that. I've supplied Eric with our feedback from Leslie and Vicky yesterday, and because in a last board meeting last week he said there's still time to feed back to the options engineers about that. So please feel free to go through Eric on that.
Okay, and in those other bits of work there that you were talking about in terms of habitat sort of support, have you had any feedback about support funding for that? Because we have the Environmental Partnership Fund, which might be an option. So
that would be great to add to, if we can separate some of that out and use that as an option as well.
We can probably provide you with some information on that,
Yeah.
which don't know where that comes from, but we'll figure that out. Thank you.
Thanks, Celeste.
And sorry, Cal again.
Yeah, again, I'll get to our question in a second. Thank you so much for the work that you do on behalf of the city to advocate for the health of the estuary. I guess my question is, you know, if you were to do a scorecard of our estuary out of 10, you know, where would it be on a scale of 1 being poor, 10 being excellent, given, of course, the fact that it is surrounded by urban development on all sides? You know, would you put a figure on that, Leslie?
It sort of depends where you're coming from, because I think with the outfall construction, you're thinking about the highly nutrient-rich waters, the oxidation ponds coming into the thing. That's vastly improved. So you have to put that aside. That's probably an 8 out of 10. And we've got work to do with the inputs that are coming from other areas like sediment things. But then you sort of think about bird disturbance and all those wonderful 122 species of birds we have in the estuary, which at the moment are highly impacted by humans and their companion animals. And we're working with council and the dog bylaws at the moment to try and get either sections of the estuary edge dog-free or definitely on a shortish lead. So that area is a bit low. That's about, 5 out of 10 at the moment. So we have those kinds of things. Anything you want to add, Leslie?
In terms of ecological health, I would say maybe 4 or 5 out of 10. I'm basing it, having read some of those early Knox pieces of work about cockles. Like the cockle numbers are way, way less than they were like in the 60s and 70s. So, it is declining. And there are so many things happening in the estuary that, and you go down Humphreys Drive, it smells like rotten eggs because all the macroalgae that's growing there, and that be impacting all the life underneath and the sediments and making it anoxic. So, it's got potential to kind of tip, I reckon, but, with all the cumulative effects. But definitely saying that, if you go to the South Shore side of it, it's better ecologically than, the western side.
I wonder if you could put together, over time, just a suggestion, a series of scorecards for a number of things like this. And when you come back to us, just sort of let us know where things are at so that we can sort of see the trends. I mean, as observed by the Estuary Trust, the closest people to the data and closest people to the situation. I think that'd be really useful for all councillors to actually understand in a very simple way, and believe me, they need simple. I am speaking for myself.
Professor
Dr. Coker.
Well,
I just think that would really help us. Yeah.
Well, there used to be annual water quality reports from ECAN because they do monitoring, and every year they do an annual summary report on, and based on the nutrients in that, they'd give it a good, poor or very poor kind of score. And then there's the City Council monitoring of the sediments in the biota, and if you go to Lawa, you see the score of those sites on Lawa.
I think we'd like to hear it from you, Leslie, from the Estuary Trust.
Well, I could put that together, but it pulls all together ECAN and the City Council data.
Okay, just before I get Yanni to do his one, that estuary drain must be tidal, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, because you're talking to the person that 50 years ago dug it.
Yeah.
No.
It's all your fault.
It was already there. It was a Christchurch Drainage Board job that instead of being a little piddly-wee ditch, we opened it up so it's like that. But it's probably all sagged in by now because that's a long time ago. So you're right, it definitely does go through the landfill that's there. And I'd say the bottom metre of it from memory is in virgin ground. So you've got stuff oozing out the side. Is that what you're saying? You've obviously tested and it's not happy stuff.
No, it's still terribly polluted.
And also the near the low end there's been erosion, so you can see some of the stuff that's on the landfill kind of poking through the banks of the.
I know, I covered it up.
Well, it might have become uncovered since then.
No, yeah, we dug it all the way up to the back of that, right at the top end. Yeah. Okay. Yanni, lastly, please.
And thanks for the work that you're doing. We have asked that the water people from council actually go to the community boards and present on their water quality data monitoring. So, I think that's a good step as well. I was just interested in your comments around the the integrated stormwater management plan for the area not being inadequate. So I was just wondering, again, if we could get some details around what are the things that you think, the top 3 things we could do that we're not currently doing in that plan. That
We did provide feedback when it was up for public submission a year
Yeah.
or two ago.
Yeah, and generally the response has been, we don't have the budget, so we're not doing it. But now we're in the budget process, we can move budget amendments. So that's why, again, just maybe getting that reinforced to us would be
Okay.
useful.
plan.
Thanks.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming in.
Thanks, Council.
And thank you so much for the work you do. It's very much appreciated.
And as a partner, thanks very much. We appreciate your work too.
No worries. Pam is online. Hello.